All right, everyone, welcome back to the channel after the storm, doing the Canes game reviews for games 1, 2, and 3 of the Boston series. Because I'm doing it in this order, I'm not going to talk too much about games 1 and 2. I'm just going to address, I'm going to talk about sort of the talking points out of those games with just a little bit of the game mixed in there. And for the first time, I think I'll be putting up a lot of tweets and doing some discussion about those tweets. And of course, there's a reason for that, and that is the Game 3 stuff. But most of the talking is going to be done about Game 3 and a little bit of a preview into Game 4, which is happening tonight at 8 p.m. It's just about 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time when I'm recording this. So some news still hasn't come out yet, but I believe that there is pretty much everything we know about what's going on tonight, maybe except for finalized lineups. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and talk about game number 1. So game number 1 was a overtime loss. Frustrating to say the least, as somebody who watched it on delay. It was almost impossible to, avoid spoilers for a game that got delayed into the next day and ended up at 11 a.m. while I was working. I came home and watched it. I just tried to, go through and get a nice feel for the game and without looking at Twitter and kind of my own thoughts on it. And my first initial thought after the game was, oh crap, the Bruins have woken up. Which, to be fair, looking at the next 2 games, of course they have, but there was obviously a lot more going on with the game and with their team than showed on the surface during those round robin games. So to start off, the officiating is brutal. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to complain about it too much. But when you see tweets like this, Scotty McCreery of American Idol fame saying, "Fix your refs at NHL" is always funny. Yeah, they weren't good in game 1, especially the goal where Mrazek has the puck covered and the Bruins are allowed to just jam it out of his glove. I didn't think Mrazek played well at all in game 1, and I was very happy when Brendan Moore announced that Reimer was going in for game 2, because Mrazek just looked like he got outpaced by the Bruins, and as a goaltender, that can't happen. On especially the Krejci goal, which I believe was the 3rd goal, when all he has to do is just sit in the net. That's where I prefer Reimer over Mrazek, is all he needs to do is just sit in the net and sit in front, because Krejci has nowhere to pass to. And the fact is that goal is totally preventable by just staying in your net and making Krejci shoot the puck, not deke it around you. Another aspect is this team's just so much different with James Reimer in the net right now. They play a lot better, they're a lot tighter, and they have a lot more trust in their goalie in the back. I do want to talk about the Canes because this wasn't a complete loss. It was a decent game that really was costed by goaltending and poor officiating. Brock McGinn gets a nice shorthanded breakaway goal. I don't just want to talk about the Bruins and the poor officiating and all of that. I do want to say, big shout out to Brock McGinn. That was a crazy good shorthanded goal for him. He's not a guy you would ever expect to pull off a move like that on the breakaway, but he did and scored. But at this stage, when I'm recording this video in this way, it is kind of old news. 4-3 OT loss against the Bruins in game 1. And now we'll talk about the biggest news kind of coming out of that game was the officiating and Rod Brendamore's comments. So if you're worried about swearing, this is going to be the point where I'm not going to bleep it out. I'm not going to skip over it. I'm just going to say the quote as it is. So the quote from Sarah Sivian of The Athletic covering the Canes. Brendamore, the guy comes to me and says it's either goalie interference because he has it and the guy knocked it out of his hand, or it's a glove hand pass. You got to pick one. Either way, it's a no goal. What? You have to tell me what the call is. He's telling me to pick one. Brendamore continued. He comes to me and says, pick one. I'm like, well, it's one of the two. There's absolutely no way that can be a goal. He's putting it on me to pick it. Well, you tell me what you're calling. You're calling he had it, then it's a fucking goalie interference. And Brendamore continued again. If you're saying he didn't have it, you're not telling me what call you're making, and I have to pick one. Then they go upstairs and say, oh, he had possession. It's horseshit. This is where the league is a joke. So unwrapping those comments, Brendamore got fined $25,000. So we all know how this has turned out so far. Really, yeah, just I can't disagree with RBA. That's a ridiculous call. It really does remind me of the Patrick Waugh stuff back in the early 2000s, where there was a play similar to this, where then he started grabbing the puck and bringing it up to show the refs that he had the puck. But I don't know how, as the refs, they don't reverse this kind of call. Like, the play is very quick, and the call on the ice is a goal. It's very obvious on this play that the only reason the puck has come out of Mrazek's glove is because a Bruins player has jammed his glove to the left. So, of course, Mrazek being a lefty, when he jams the puck, or his glove, I should say, to the left, it opens the glove up like this to shove the puck out. The unfortunate aspect of this is a lot of the Carolina defenders stopped playing when they saw Mrazek hold the puck, which is kind of common, but at the same time, if the puck does come out and you don't hear the whistle, you gotta keep playing. But this is undoubtedly a blown call, and if you're looking at the difference in the game, it could be it's as simple as this. It could be this goal. So that's going to cap off Game 1. I'm going to move on to Game 2. Game 2 was important because for the Canes, one of the biggest Bruins players not in the lineup, David Pastrnak. If you've seen the clip of him being injured in the overtime and celebrating the OT winner of Patrice Bergeron, he limps around a lot, considerably, even when he gets off the ice. I've never seen a player, if he's not seriously hurt, be able to go into a celebration, if you know what I mean. It looked like Pastrnak was just severely hurt, and he hasn't played since. So a fantastic opportunity for the Carolina Hurricanes, without one of Boston's best players, to go ahead and get this series evened up. Now, I will talk about David Pastrnak going forward. He did not play Game 3, and he's already been ruled out for Game 4. Unfortunately, too, in this game, man, there was a lot of issues with the officiating again. One of the most egregious non-calls of the game. Something that I disagreed with fans on Twitter. I don't think this would ever get called, mostly because it's not that I don't believe it's a penalty. It's that the NHL playoffs determine that this, for some reason, is not a penalty. So a tweet from Scouting the Refs. You can't do that. Rule 9.6. A player who intentionally removes an opponent's helmet during play shall be assessed a minor penalty for roughing. See also Rule 51.2. So the play, I'm sure if you're a Canes fan, you've all seen it by now. In the corner, Stahl and McAvoy having a bit of a jostle fest. And what McAvoy does is skates around and grabs Jordan Stahl's helmet and just rips it off. By the rule book, this is a penalty. But when the Stanley Cup playoffs roll around, for some reason, some stuff is a penalty and some stuff is not a penalty. It makes no sense, and it absolutely devalues the game. The only reason I can conceivably believe that this wouldn't be a penalty is that Stahl and McAvoy are not in the play, and that's still not a good excuse. It's not a good excuse when you especially consider the fact that the ref almost handed Stahl a penalty for not turning and going to the bench when his helmet came off. Fortunately, the referees would not cost the Canes this game, or the Bruins this game for that matter. I thought the officiating in the third period was exactly where you want it to be, and Game 3 wasn't too bad either in terms of officiating. But Hamilton, a game-winning goal in the third period with a blistering slap shot off a pass from Martin Necas, who had a crazy good game in this one. Yeah, take a look at this very grainy photo, albeit I'm sorry for the graininess of it. This is after the puck has already gone in. Just look at Rask. Like, Rask wanted no part of this shot when it came off Hamilton's stick. Dougie Hamilton got the game-winning goal, and I think what I'll do is I'll stick with Dougie Hamilton before I throw in a couple more tweets. From Brett Finger on Twitter. Dougie Hamilton's first 2 games after 7 months off due to injury and / the suspended season. 26:48 and 24:20 of time on ice. It's about 51 total minutes. Obviously, Dougie Hamilton is going to eat minutes up for the Canes. This is just, he looked no different than his Norris caliber season before he got injured in Columbus. Sticking with Dougie Hamilton here, the Brendan Moore failed coaches challenge. Hamilton, when asked about killing the penalty after the failed coaches challenge. We all respect Rod so much, and to see him sticking up for us yesterday, we're going to go to bat for him. Talking about Rod Brendan Moore's comments about the officiating after Game 1, the Canes definitely responded and really played for Brendan Moore in this one. From Corey Lavalette on Twitter, Hamilton on if it's nice to score against his old team. First of all, it's my grandma's birthday, so I think that one's for her. Otherwise, I think it's great to score against your old team in the playoffs in the third period. And I'm not sure how many Canes fans actually kind of saw an exchange on Twitter after a tweet from Michael Smith. The tweet from Michael Smith on Twitter: Dougie Hamilton on scoring a goal. It's my grandma's birthday today, so that one's for her. Happy birthday, Joan. And then it appears, if this is true, I'm not exactly sure if this is her Twitter account or not, said, thanks so much. It is the icing on the cake, Grandma Joan. That was such a heartwarming moment after that game for, if that is Dougie's grandma. I'm not sure if it is. It could just be somebody with the Twitter hit or Twitter thing. Mike didn't tweet at her. I don't think Mike knew about her Twitter account, so I'm leaning towards that was actually her. And if so, that is such a cool little tweet, a fun little moment after Dougie Hamilton's game-winning goal in Game 2. Additionally, one of the players that played very, very well in the game was Trevor Van Riemsdyk. So this tweet from Alex O'Harry, sorry Alex if I butchered your last name there, at Future Canes. If you're not following him, you absolutely should be. Unsung hero of that game is TVR. Some of y'all owe him an apology. Came in after sitting pretty for 2 weeks and was an absolute unit. Guys like him can just elevate in the playoffs. What an effort. Speaking on TVR again, I thought he just did so many little things well. He was a calming presence on the blue line for a right side shot that's really struggling right now, and the other one being Sammy Vatanen. But other than that, that was the exact performance you want of a guy coming into the lineup to replace. And lastly, on Game 2, probably the biggest story that really broke the next day, or the next game, I should say, was the comments from Tuukka Rask and what happened afterwards. So from Evan Marinovsky on Twitter: Rask, it doesn't really feel like playoff hockey right now. There's no fans. It feels like an exhibition game. Now, on the surface, that's kind of a very, it's a very pedestrian comment, but as we see the next couple days unfold for Rask, it really was just his his thinking towards everything that was going on. So as we entered game number 3, the biggest storyline, of course, one was still Pastrnak was going to be out for the game. Mrazek was coming back in, and the absolute biggest news so far was Tuukka Rask was opting out of the NHL's return to play Stanley Cup playoffs. So a statement from Tuukka Rask tweeted from the Bruins Twitter account: I want to be with my teammates competing, but at this moment there are things more important than hockey in my life, and that is being with my family. I want to thank the Bruins and my teammates for their support and wish them success. I want to start this whole thing off. If you're criticizing Tuukka Rask for going home to be with his family, which is his wife, his 2 children, and a newborn by the sounds of it, just stop. Just stop tweeting, stop commenting. There's no room to criticize Tuukka Rask. If you really think about what's happening with these players, sure, they're surrounded by a core group of individuals that they spend a lot of time with. But on the other end, you can't go anywhere besides the rink, BMO Field, inside that bubble. You can't really do much. So on the whole, it feels like they're trapped. And I can definitely feel for a guy like Tuukka, who now has 3 kids, and his wife is sitting at home with 3 young children, having to raise them all herself, that why would you want to be in the bubble? Why would you want to be in Toronto away from that? I won't judge Tuukka Rask for doing anything like that. That's a decision I would make in the same situation if I had a wife and 3 kids at home that did actually need my attention and need me to be there. I was listening to the Steve Dangle podcast this morning, actually, and I thought Adam Wilde on it made it such a great point. Adam talked about your team, and your number 1 team in life will always be your family, and the Bruins are Rask's number 2 team. So complaining about, how much Rask gets paid and then he traveled over, he gave it a shot, and he just didn't want to do it, and it's his option to leave. They gave all these players all the options. No team should, by the looks of it, be taking any punishments out on the players or anything into the future. It's just Rask's choice to head home. So that'll be the last I talk about Tuukka Rask. I hope he's happy, healthy, him and his family, and happy to be home in Finland. So this game, there wasn't really a whole lot to talk about. I thought the officiating was fine in Game 3. I really just thought this was a poor effort from the Canes top to bottom. A 1-0 game heading into the third, an early goal from Sean Corrali. The Canes just never got their feet moving. There's so many issues of their game that could be solved by just moving their feet. And for whatever reason, they just weren't able to. They couldn't muster up the energy to, and a gift goal for Nino Niederreiter gets them close, but inevitably it's a 3-1 loss after the empty netter. I believe Brad Marchand had that one. But the biggest storyline at the end of the game for the Canes, Andrei Svechnikov with a very gross looking play with Zdeno Chara in front of the net. As you can see up on the screen, very grainy photo. I took it from a GIF online on Twitter. At Here's Your Replay is who I want to shout out there. Here's Your Replay on Twitter is the Twitter account. You should absolutely, if you're a hockey fan, be following GIFs all the time of any game that's happening. Ankles are not supposed to bend that way. So we don't know out of that what exactly the injury is due to the NHL's unfit to play. If it's not with COVID and everything, it's very confusing. Chip Alexander had a tweet here. Williams says Svechnikov wasn't in the room after the game, nor should anyone expect him to be. And here's Corey Lafollette on the Svechnikov injury. Svechnikov is an all-world talent, and the Canes are not better without him, if that's where this is headed. That said, they won 4 of 5 games after he was knocked out by Ovechkin last season. We're up 1-0 in that game, won it 5-0. If there's one guy this team will rally behind, it's him. Yesterday, Rod Brind'Amour addressed the Andrei Svechnikov injury with a quote from his press conference. Rod Brind'Amour says he highly doubts Svechnikov will be back for the playoffs, but he doesn't have an official update yet. Svechnikov was getting an MRI. So before I move into what was the controversial aspect of all this, there was an update from Luke DeCock of the News Observer in a tweet I'll put up here in a sec. So Luke DeCock said, latest on Svechnikov post-MRI. Not a worst-case scenario. Will be out for a while, but could potentially return if the Hurricanes advance to conference or Stanley Cup Finals. Likely to remain in Toronto bubble at this point. So fantastic news for Svechnikov. I think I saw another tweet that said it was a high ankle sprain, which is just phenomenal if that's the case, because that looked like a broken ankle or torn ACLs or torn everything in your knee. Also, just one more talk about Svechnikov before we move on. If you believe that Chara intentionally did that, I don't know what to say to you. Chara's had a rap sheet of, doing this, but I don't think if you look at the play, and you can't slow the play down. This is the big thing. You can't slow plays down to determine intent. If you watch it at full speed, it's just Chara and Svechnikov in the slot battling for position in front of the net. And what Chara does is he wants to spin Svechnikov out. He wants Svechnikov to get away from where he is and just shove him away. So that's what he does. He changes Svechnikov's angle so he can get a better angle on defending the shot, getting a block, making sure Svechnikov's stick isn't in a lane to deflect or get a rebound. But if you believe Chara could manage to actually go into a play with a player who's 6'1", 6'2", and spin him out so that he purposely gets his leg caught in the ice and sprains his ankle, I just don't know what to say to you. It's not an intentional play. It's so comparable to the Scheifele-Kachuk play from the Winnipeg-Calgary series. If you're slowing a play down in any other aspect other than determine if there was head contact, I just don't... There's no case for intent on that play. All right, now let's get to the thing that everybody's talking about. I hate this guy. I'll preface this before we get into it. Homer commentary is fine. Homer commentary, like John Forsland. The Canes fans all know John Forsland. John Forsland's a pro. He doesn't take sides in the game, but he still was our commentator. Now, Trip Tracy, on the other hand, he's a homer. He loves the Canes. He's friends with all the players, all that kind of stuff. And that's where it gets fun. Being a homer of a team, having your personal team broadcast, have a homer commentator is always fun. But this isn't Homer commentary. This is just something completely different. So Jack Edwards on Twitter. What NBC hasn't shown yet regarding the unfortunate injury to Svechnikov. The Carolina wing playing hobby horse, riding Chara on the back apron of the goal. You poke the bear, you take your chances. No one wanted to see Svechnikov hurt, but he bit off more than he could chew. Okay, to start unwrapping this, Aho was the one tangled up with Chara behind the net. And hobby horse isn't a phrase that anybody's used in the last 60 years. The issue here is that this isn't new for Jack Edwards. We're not far removed from the Roman Polak incident where Jack said bad hockey karma as Polak went headfirst into the boards and laid motionless on the ice. A different play, a different circumstance, and that is him talking about a player who's paralyzed. And that play prompted Polak's agent Alan Walsh to tweet this. At Walsh A on Twitter, I have tremendous respect for the Bruin players that sent best wishes, all class. As for Jack Edwards, to say Roman's injury was bad hockey karma while he was laying on motionless on the ice, you are truly a piece of shit and an absolute disgrace. Yeah, I don't disagree with Alan Walsh on anything he said in that. It's ridiculous that this is still allowed in this league. Here's a tweet from Daniel Wagner from 2019. Anyone surprised by Jack Edwards' karma comment about Roman Polak's injury doesn't remember when an entire arena filled of Bostonian fans chanted flopper at Mason Raymond while he laid on the ice with a broken back. Seems to be a staple of Boston hockey. I won't paint Bruins fans all with the same brush. I don't believe that they're this ridiculous, but I think there's a really large section of Bruin fans that also don't like Jack Edwards. And in all fairness, you shouldn't like Jack Edwards. Jack Edwards is kind of what's wrong with hockey and he's not where this thing is moving forward. I mean, when you have a player like Ryan Whitney who is arguably in the same kind of situation where he's in sort of a thing with Spit and Chicklets and Barstool where you're not really progressing forward in the way the game needs. And even he's ratioing you on Twitter. The Canes Twitter account's going off. Evander Kane is going off at him. It's just, it's this mentality in hockey that needs to evolve. There were the Mike Milbury comments about Rask before the game, which were so tone deaf. The difference here is that I don't think of Mike Milbury as somebody who's speaking to any sort of section of hockey fans anymore. I don't know why he's there. I don't. NBC Sports, what are you doing? It makes no sense to me why Mike Milbury's on the broadcast. I'm not even that, we talk about these guys a lot. Roenick was another one. This is the larger conversation that needs to start being had. We've addressed racism, and that's a fight that's never going to end. We need to always be on that. But it's this other section of hockey, and it's so many fans share this same frickin' viewpoint of you get what you deserve and just wishing ill. That's what Jack Edwards is doing here. He's wishing harm on people. He's happy that Svechnikov got injured despite his words. He doesn't want to have a discussion as his Twitter bio states. All the guy wanted to do was send out a tweet so his name would be out there. He's a coward who hides behind the veil of being a play-by-play commentator on NESN. I already tweeted about this, and whatever. The final thing I'll say is the NHL, NESN, and the people who believe this is okay are perpetuating this behavior that won't stop. It's so rampant within the hockey community. I already tweeted about it. I'm already tired of talking about this fucking guy. Last thing on it, NESN, NHL, the Bruins, you guys are all enabling this behavior. It starts and ends with you, especially the NHL. The idea should be that you take this out of your game. You will consistently be the 4 out of the 4 big sports if you allow this kind of garbage to just permeate through your organization. So that's going to do it for this video, guys. Trying not to end it on an angry note. With that being said, thank you guys. If you watched to this point, if you watched only because of Jack Edwards, if you watched because you're a Bruins fan, well, I think you're a little bit lost. It's looking like it's going to be a long series, and hopefully the Canes can tie this up tonight in Game 4. So again, thank you for watching. Click like if you liked the video. Subscribe for more content like this. Check out some of the other stuff on the channel, the gaming stuff. I did a Marner trade video that actually kind of took off last week. And of course, there's some Canes game review stuff. I'm trying to, fingers crossed, get this more actively coming out on the days of, but with a job that's 10 hours long that starts at 6 in the morning and makes me go to bed at 8 p.m., it's really tough. So that's why I did it in this way, that I did all the first 3 games and all together. But that's going to do it for this one, guys. Let's go Canes. I will see you on the next episode.